At this time, I would like to introduce to the board at our special meeting in July, we voted to accept Mr. Blevins as our attorney on record, and board members asked me to invite him here to introduce himself and to meet everyone. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Attorney Jerry Blevins and have him say a few words, and if you have any questions for him at this time would be great. Mr. Blevins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairwoman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say it's a pleasure to represent the board. From what I've learned of the organization thus far, you are doing outstanding work and have some lofty goals that I look forward to working with the board and assisting in carrying out. For those of you that don't know me, I'm from Montgomery. I've been practicing law for over 20 years now and been actively engaged in practice in Macon County as well as Tuskegee. But I will say it's an honor and a privilege to represent y'all, and I look forward to doing so for many years to come. So if y'all have any questions for me, feel free.
We look forward to a long relationship with you. One of the things I'd like to bring back to the forefront, and one of the reasons why the board voted to go with Mr. Blevins, because he was generous enough to tell us, to allow us to retain him for services per se without having to put a retainer fee down. And he did that in honor of the fact that we're a nonprofit, and I appreciate that, and I think all of the board members did, and that's what really made his research and presentation stand out. So we really appreciate the fact that he's willing to do that and not charge us anything until we really get ready to have to use some services, but be there and available for us without a retainer fee.
Now, I would just say along those lines that I've made it my practice over the years that folks trying to do good, especially with nonprofits, that I try to assist and do my part when possible, and that's part of the reason I offered to do that, and we're doing that.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Yes.
I had tried to invite Mr. Eric Love, who is currently the board CPA. I made several phone calls at the numbers that I had. I may have old numbers because I just found them in old records. But he didn't get a chance to call me back. And so we were going to invite him here just to meet board members who didn't know who he was.
Wait, before I get started, I want to introduce a new member of my committee, if I may. You know, Ms. Gabrielle Modesti. You know, very recent graduate of Tuskegee University. One of the things, I contacted a contractor to take a look at that brown building, just so we could know what it would cost to try to put it back in the commons, try to do something with it. And I'm going to get 2 more quotes from 2 other contractors. But you see, it's a very hefty price. Now, guess what? About 10 years ago, we had a quote on both of those buildings. I think the brown one is called, what, the Sadler's House? Or something like that.
Yeah, it's called the Sadler's.
And the other one is called the Callaway House, the white one. But 10 years ago, the quote was $173,802.98 for the Sadler House. And for the Callaway House, it was $119,321. But 10 years of neglect and nobody in there, you know, of course, the roof is badly damaged and everything else, then you can see with inflation and everything, it's $400,000 to do it. But I tell you, I think it would be well worth to do that. We can find many things the board to utilize that house for, you know, and just so many things. We might have some young doctors coming in somewhere, might need some ways to, we might be able to put them up over there or something. Or we can even take it and turn it into a bed and breakfast and make some money off of it. I mean, there's so many things that we can do with it, but instead of letting it sit up there and just fall apart, you know, any house where there's no human habitation in it, it's going to fall apart. And that thing's been that way for what, about 20 years, 15, 20 years?
Okay, I have a question. Is this a comprehensive estimate, or is this just a cursory?
It's sort of a cursory, but this is in the ballpark. It may be a few dollars more, a few dollars less, and I'm leaning toward the less side. But once we get the other 2 quotes in, I think we'd be able to look at this and tell if it's feasible or not to move forward with this. But if we don't move forward with it, what are we gonna do with it?
So this quote comes from, Dad's Enterprise.
Right.
Do you have other people that do you know who else you're gonna try to get a quote from?
I have one other contractor, I'm waiting for him to call me back, but the third one, I don't have one yet. If you know a contractor that might be able to do something, you have to make sure you get a contractor that can work on historic buildings, first of all.
Right,
You don't want to just pull anybody off the street and try to go in there and do work on that building.
Right, but I would like for the board, if the board would like to make recommendations for, if you know of a,
Dreadco would be my recommendation.
Greco?
so.
Okay, well, I'll put them on this and contact them.
Right, let them work it. Now, you say you're going to do one on the little house too? He didn't do one?
No, he didn't. Honest to God, that's on me, because I built that White House. To me, it's a complete loss. I mean, when they moved that house to that spot, they didn't do a proper job of it. And it's got so many splits, the house almost broken in half, you know. So
What's the
it would be
present quote
almost
that
like-
you guys are looking at?
I'm
Say
sorry.
what?
What's the present quote that you're looking at?
$400,000.
That's just one house.
That's just for the satellite house.
So are you suggesting that maybe that other, the white and blue house be just destroyed? or
Yeah,
torn
but
down?
I'll go and have the contractor go in and look at it with, but I mean, I
But
built
that
it
house is a
way.
historical house as well.
It is.
It is.
That's the Chandler, I think it's the Chandler,
No, it's Callaway.
Callaway.
Yeah, but you know, it is, I don't know if it's historical or not.
It's only historical.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
on the
but
historical.
what are we supposed to do with it? See, to me, it's either a matter of you either do something with it or either tear it down, and we don't want to tear down the historic house, so what are we gonna do?
Well,
Let's
that's
let
what
them
office
decay.
space and stuff too. We appreciate, this preliminary report. I also like to ask what your committee is doing as far as inventory for all of our other assets.
Well, but maybe we can have something for you at the retreat. We do retreat 19 and 20. I'll pull them together and see what we can do so we can report on that.
At least do a cursory.
Right, absolutely.
Any questions for any more questions for Mr. Hopkins? If not, we want to thank you for your presentation. This is for information only, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So at this time, we're going to move on to financial report.
And what you have is just basically an outline of what the expenditures has been for the last month, showing the balances that are on hand. For PNC Bank, it's $13,853.34, and for First Tuskegee Bank, you have $5,839.50, giving you a balance of $19,689.84.
84.
Yes. 84. And that's as of August. Today's date. Any questions?
I just had a question. When did we get a copy of the audit? I know last time we got it.
Yes, that should be mailed to you if they have your address on file, or emailed to you. Okay.
I spoke with the auditor, and she told me that they have to wait until the state of Alabama formally publishes the audit. And when they do that, she will email me a copy, and then I will email it to every board member. And that becomes public record. But she said they could not publish it until they make it an official part of the public record, and that's what we're waiting for. And she told me it probably wouldn't come out until September. From the state auditor. I have a question about the insurance on Water Street. I thought we just paid that.
Yes,
We're paying it again in August.
No. I'm sorry, I failed to correct that.
Okay.
That's just
That's not being paid this month, right?
No, it's already been paid, so we don't have anything due on that now.
Right.
And that expended this month is incorrect. Those need to be, I'm sorry, I made an error there.
So expenditures this month is actually just $400.
Yes,
Okay. I don't know what's going on with my throat. I apologize.
So just draw a line through the
Yes.
insurance.
Yes, ma'am, and make that to $400 instead of 2. Should be a total of $400. Where you see the 2,
It should be.
it should be 4, and strike out the 90206.
It'll be a total of $400 expenditure for August. It's 400. Because we're paying for July and August. So that'll be 400.
Right.
And that's the only expenditures we have for the month of August.
That's right.
So this balance is still just $97.94, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is
Okay.
correct. That's still the remaining balance.
Okay, and the Bank of New York has not taken their fee yet. their
Now, what the
administrative
bank,
fee.
what happens is that's drawn from the funds that they have on file.
Right.
And that would not be reflected on here, so that still remains like just, what do you call it? Contingency funds,
Okay.
because they'll remove from those funds that they receive from the revenue commissioner's office, the balance that they have.
And so you will be, I'm assuming, Mr. Ellis, that you will be getting all of that information from Gertrude, so you can now have that you be keeping records of that. Okay, are there any other questions on the financial or the budget report? Okay, if there's nothing else, we're gonna move down to others, and that's first Mr. Rackley.
Wanted to just share some things with the board. I was away last month meeting to the National Area Health Education Centers Conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is an annual conference that for the first time was chaired by 2 women co-chairs, both women of color, which made a lot of people nervous. Yours truly was a participant in terms of planning for the education committee. So I brought the booklet along with you to look at, but not to worry, it turned out to be the largest conference in the history of the organization.
Oh, wow.
Well attended, over 600 people there for this conference. So those 2 women did a wonderful job, Ms. Wynn and Bird from Atlanta, SPCCA. So it was a wonderful conference. There was a lot of learning going on, and a couple of things that are out there. And one that Alabama is resisting. Alabama resists a lot of things that are on the cutting edge. But it's this whole bit about paramedicine. And it was discussed the other day at our regional EMS meeting that paramedicine is going to become a reality finally in Alabama. They don't know how they're going to do it, but there's such a need for what we know as home health to be continued, and there just aren't enough physicians, nurses, or whatever to go around. So with the idea that paramedics have significant amount of downtime when they're not running, they can extend themselves with some additional training to provide sort of home health types of care. Also, you know, there's a tremendous need in terms of mental health in this country, and especially in Alabama. And I don't mean so much in terms of treating patients, but making sure they're compliant with the treatment that they're supposed to be getting. So that's another avenue that paramedics are going to be looked at. Also, there's something, I've been fond of the term for a long while. You may have heard me talk about leading community health workers. But I think there's opportunity now to train community health workers who are non-healthcare providers, but will be specifically trained to intervene to help individuals who are housebound.
So is there a company here that does community health care?
No. Other than, you know, other than home health that
Home health.
that's done through community.
Right.
Also, I'd like to update you on what's happening in Alabama in terms of stroke and trauma. At our meeting August